All I wanted was to matter to my family, but being left out of Christmas and then asked for $17,000 for my brother's wedding showed me I never really did. This is how I finally walked away. I wish I could say I came from a warm and loving household. I wish I could say the worst thing that ever happened to me was being grounded for missing curfew or not doing my homework. But the truth is, the house I grew up in never felt like a home. It felt like a courtroom where I was always on trial. My parents, Mark and Linda, had this belief that just by providing the bare minimum food, shelter, clothing, they were saints. Anything above that, that was a debt, and I was expected to repay it for the rest of my life. Dad had a hero complex, always going on about how he built his life from nothing, how hard he worked, how lucky we were to live under his roof. He told that story so many times, I could repeat it word for word, but he left out all the parts where he made me feel like a burden, like a disappointment, like a failed version of himself. Mom. Mom was a different kind of manipulator. She wielded guilt like a master swordsman. She'd remind me constantly of her sacrifices. I gave up everything for you, she'd say, usually before guilting me into doing something she didn't want to do herself, like taking care of dinner or helping her organize the garage. They weren't physically abusive, but emotional damage. That came daily. Love was transactional. If I did well, it was because of them. If I failed, it was my fault for not listening. If they helped me, they held it over my head like a knife. And then there was Ryan. My younger brother was the golden child in every cliché sense of the word. He could do no wrong. While I was expected to get straight A's, find a part-time job, clean the house, and stay out of trouble. Ryan breezed through life. He was charming when he wanted something, lazy when he didn't, and somehow always managed to avoid consequences. At 16, I was working a cashier job after school. At 16, Ryan was skipping classes and playing video games in the basement with his girlfriend, Kylie. Guess which one of us got yelled at for not helping enough around the house? I thought I'd escaped when I moved out at 24. I got married, moved to the other side of town, and for a while, things felt good. My ex and I didn't have kids, which made the divorce slightly less messy than it could have been. But emotionally, I was drained. I had to move fast, split assets, and figure out life solo again. Unfortunately, I didn't have close friends who could take me in, and I wasn't making enough to keep the apartment on my own, which meant, after a lot of soul-crushing hesitation, I did the one thing I swore I'd never do. I moved back in with my parents. It was supposed to be temporary. Just a few months, I told myself, save up, get out. But a few months turned into nearly a year. A year of passive-aggressive comments from Mom, unwanted lectures from Dad, and being forced to share space with Ryan, who was now 22, still jobless, still living at home, still gaming every night and living off their support like it was owed to him. The first few weeks back were tolerable. I bit my tongue, I helped out, I paid rent, I contributed to groceries. I cleaned without being asked. But none of that mattered. To them, I was still the problem child, the drama, the failure who came crawling back. And Ryan, he was still the king of the castle. Dad would compare us constantly. Ryan's just taking his time. He'll get there, he'd say. You, on the other hand, need to step up. Never mind the fact that I was working part-time and freelancing on the side just to scrape together savings. To them, effort didn't matter, results did. And Ryan's results always got rebranded as potential. One evening in December, 2 weeks before Christmas, I walked into the living room after a long shift and saw suitcases. Lots of them. My parents were packing clothes, shuffling around excitedly. Ryan was on the couch, scrolling through his phone, half-packed bags by his feet. What's going on? I asked. My dad looked up briefly. We're leaving for Italy tomorrow. I blinked. Italy since when? We planned it weeks ago. My mom replied like I was dense for asking. Wanted to do something special this year. Ryan's been so excited. I felt my chest tighten. So, you're all going? Of course, Dad said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. It's a family trip. I stood there frozen, so I'm not invited. Mom gave a half-hearted shrug. We didn't think you'd want to come. And honestly, with your financial situation, she trailed off. Ryan piped in without looking up. Yeah, and you've been kind of a buzzkill lately. The words hit harder than I expected. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just stared. You could have told me, I finally said, voice quieter than I meant. Dad sighed. Look, it's not a big deal. Maybe if you had your act together. We could have helped with your ticket, but maybe next year. They left the next morning. No hugs, no goodbye, just silence. I sat in that empty house on Christmas Eve, staring at the blank spot where the tree used to be. They didn't even bother putting one up this year. Italy was enough for them. I made myself a bowl of cereal and sat in the kitchen, scrolling through social media, watching as every single post seemed designed to rub salt in the wound. There were photos from the trip, my dad standing in front of a fountain, Ryan eating pasta bigger than his head, my mom's caption, making memories with my favorite people. Favorite people, right? By noon, I couldn't take it. I got in my car, went to the only open place, a drive-through burger joint, and ate lunch in the parking lot, watching families laugh through car windows. I felt something shift in me, a kind of quiet fury. That night, I called Mike, an old friend I hadn't spoken to since the divorce. We didn't talk about much, just stupid stuff, but it was enough to make me feel human again. It was also the moment I realized I would never be one of them. Not really. The day after New Year's. I thought I might get a few days of peace, but of course, nothing good lasts in that house. I was trying to keep my distance. Stay polite. Do the minimum. Then, one afternoon, my dad summoned me to the living room with a serious tone like we were about to discuss a family emergency. My stomach dropped. It always did when they said they needed to talk. Dad was sitting straight, arms crossed. Mom had that tight, fake smile expression she wore when she was trying to manipulate someone. Ryan was grinning like he just landed a new level in his game. We have exciting news, Dad announced. Oh, boy. Kylie and I are getting married, Ryan said, lifting his hand in some mock triumphant gesture. We're planning a spring wedding. I nodded. Congrats. Silence. Then Dad leaned back and dropped the hammer. We're going to need your help financially. We figured $17,000 is a fair contribution. I blinked. $17,000. Mom nodded, as if she were asking me to pass the salt, not drop a year's worth of rent. It's not just for Ryan, it's for the family, she said with a smile like that made it better. You've had a wedding, Dad added. You know how expensive these things are. The irony almost made me laugh. My own wedding had been a disaster. My parents barely contributed, and they barely even showed up emotionally. But now I was expected to bankroll Ryan's fairy tale. I can't do that, I said firmly. Mom's smile twisted. We've done so much for you, especially since the divorce. You've been living here, haven't you? I took a deep breath. I've been paying rent. I've been paying for food. I've been working nonstop. I'm not a freeloader. Dad frowned. You're still family. Sometimes we need to step up for one another. Oh, like you stepped up for me on Christmas, I snapped. Ryan rolled his eyes. Dude, let it go. You're always so dramatic. I looked him dead in the eye. You're 22. You live at home. You don't work. You do nothing. But somehow, I'm the one who has to foot the bill for your wedding. That's not fair, Mom snapped. He's still figuring things out. He's 20.2, I repeated, voice rising, not 12. Dad stood up, voice stern. This is exactly what we mean. You're always combative, always negative. Maybe if you were more supportive, we'd treat you differently. I stood too. Supportive. You mean obedient, submissive, convenient? I'm not your ATM. I'm not selling my car. I'm not taking out loans. The answer is no. Ew. Mom gasped like I had slapped her. How can you be so selfish? I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just walked out, heart pounding, fists clenched. It didn't end there. A few days later, while I was making a sandwich, Mom walked in with that overly sweet voice that always preceded manipulation. You know, she said, you've got that nice car just sitting outside. It's in great condition. I narrowed my eyes. So, if you sold it, you could help with the wedding. It would mean so much to Ryan and us. I need that car, I said flatly. For work, for everything. She tilted her head. You're being short-sighted. This is an opportunity to show real commitment to the family. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You mean an opportunity to give up the one thing that gives me independence? That night, I decided. I was done. Done trying, done hoping, done being the only one who ever gave a damn. I started looking for apartments that very night. It wasn't easy. I didn't have good credit, and most places were out of my budget. But finally, I found a small studio in a sketchy part of town. Cheap enough if I scraped every penny I had. The landlord was skeptical. But I convinced him with a double deposit and my freelance work history. He gave me the keys. Move.in was that weekend. I had less than 5 days to get out quietly. I packed at night, only a little at a time, so no one would notice. It felt like plotting an escape from a hostile compound. I kept everything in boxes in my trunk, waiting for the moment. Thursday night, the house was quiet, everyone asleep. I grabbed the last bag, closed the front door behind me, and didn't look back. I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe them one. I cut all ties, blocked their numbers, removed them from social media. Even their emails went to spam. I knew how they operated. One opening one, "How are you?" and they'd find a way to guilt me back. I couldn't let that happen. At first, it felt freeing. The silence was peaceful. But it didn't last. 2 months passed without a word. I rebuilt slowly, bit by bit. A freelance gig here, a weekend job there. The studio was tiny and the heat barely worked, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I could hear my own thoughts. No passive-aggressive digs, no family meetings, no daily reminders of how I wasn't enough. Then came the texts from random people, a neighbor, a cousin I hadn't seen in 5 years. "Hey, your mom's been trying to reach you. It's urgent." I ignored them, but then I got an email from my mom. The first few lines were all sugar. "We hope you're well. We think of you often. We pray for your happiness." Then the guilt train pulled in. "We've hit a rough patch, some unexpected expenses. If you could help financially, it would mean the world. Family always comes first, right?" Attached was a list. Non-refundable deposits, balance due for the venue, cake, DJ. They were drowning without me. They had no backup plan. And I felt nothing. I heard through Mike that Ryan had tried to get Kylie's parents to help, but they refused. "If you can't afford a wedding, don't have one," they said. I respected that. Kylie, apparently, had had enough. She gave Ryan an ultimatum: "Set boundaries with your parents, or I'm gone." Ryan picked them. Kylie left. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey," a quiet voice said. "It's Kylie." I froze. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry," she said, "for everything. I should have spoken up. I knew what they were doing. I saw how they treated you. I was just scared to say anything." I didn't say anything at first. "I guess I just wanted you to know you're not crazy. What they did, it wasn't okay." "Thank you," I said finally. "That means a lot." She paused. "I don't know if Ryan and I will work things out. I doubt it. He's too attached to them. He doesn't know who he is without their approval." We talked for a while, mostly about the mess the wedding had become. After we hung up, I stared at the ceiling. For the first time, someone in the family had acknowledged what I'd lived through. A week later, Ryan called. "I know I was a jerk," he said. "I should have stood up for you. I should have been a better brother. I'm sorry." I listened. "I appreciate the apology," I said, "but I'm not ready to forgive you. It's going to take time. A lot of it." Then the storm really hit. They couldn't reach me directly, so they got creative. Friends of friends, mutual contacts, messages passed through DMs. The house was in danger of foreclosure. Credit cards maxed. They were selling furniture. Then came the message I knew was inevitable. "They're selling the house." I wasn't surprised. That house had always been too big, too expensive, too much of a trophy. Then one Saturday morning, someone knocked on my door. It was my father. He looked tired, older, thinner, desperate. "We need to talk," he said. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "We're in trouble," he said. "The mortgage is behind. The cards are bad. We might lose everything." I didn't respond. "We need your help." I folded my arms. "You mean money?" He hesitated. "Yes." I shook my head. "No, but we're family," he said, voice rising. "Funny," I said. "That only matters when you need something." "What about the house?" he asked, almost pleading. "It's your childhood home. It stopped feeling like home a long time ago." He looked stunned, like he truly didn't understand how we got here. But I did. Every skipped hug, every insult wrapped in sugar, every time they made me feel invisible, it all added up. And now it was time to choose myself. Final lines. "Walking away doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've finally learned to care for yourself." And I was done sacrificing peace for people who never saw me. I didn't walk away from my family. I walked away from pain. And that made all the difference.